Happy Tuesday, Scott.
Happy Tuesday as well to you. How are things going, Robin?
Oh, things are going great. Now that we're back from Dallas, back in the flow of things, it was so great to get out the last couple of weeks and see people in real life and connect with others, and just also see what people were talking about, top of mind in education. We read online every day, but actually getting to engage with folks and hear directly from them was just a great opportunity. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo the same. Obviously, great to be just back in person with friends. And I think one step further for me is just the connection to and the discussions that happen post sessions, right? Still, great to be learning from folks and hearing the latest and greatest about tools and strategies and that kind of thing, but also just what excitement and conversation that brings at the lunch table or dinners or walking the halls and things like that. It was just fun to feel that energy again, and definitely look forward to more of that as we move forward.
Yeah, and actually get to do a show with our guest live with us was pretty awesome too.
That was super fantastic. I have thought about that a lot, and I know we were pretty spoiled, and I would love to do that once a month if we could, if the opportunity presented itself. And certainly the twins. I mean, you can't get much more engaging and interesting and fun people than Mario and Alberto. So that was super cool.
Yeah. Hey, hi to all our friends out there viewing. I see some people coming in. Hey, Victoria. Hey, Amanda. I see you posted in the chat here. Great to be with you guys tonight. So tonight, what we're going to do is we took an opportunity to take advantage of the time we had together in person in Dallas a couple of weeks ago at TCEA, and we're able to connect with some amazing educators, change makers, school leaders while we were there. So what we thought would do is we're going to bring some of that live footage that we filmed at TCEA a couple of weeks ago in Dallas to the show tonight. So Scott, are you ready to introduce our guests? That are joining us from 2 weeks from the past tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Still pretty relevant, right? Still recent, just within a couple of weeks. But yeah, our first guest that we have is Rochelle De Nepal, who's just awesome, an author. I mean, how many things does she do, Robin? An author, a speaker, a consultant, a teacher. I mean, she's really done it all. Just a really great mind. Really enjoyed our conversation with her.
Loved it. Yeah, I was even chatting with her, over social after the event when she was trying to get back home. And I think she ended up not getting back home until like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and then had to be at school at 7 a.m. that day. So, just a reminder too of, what it takes to be a great educator that wants to be connected and, remain connected and grow their PLN, but at the same time, be present for their students back on a Friday morning when you just get off of the plane.
Right. The reason we all got into this profession in the first place, right? We can't forget about our role and our responsibility with our students, for sure.
Yeah. According to Victoria, also an attorney.
The list goes on and on. Too much for me to take on. And then our second interview tonight is with our friends from Texas, from Fried Tech, Amy Storr and Stephen Stone. We know we've had Stephen on before when he was here with Seth earlier in the year, but really enjoyed their conversation just based on, they had a whole room. I don't know if you got up there, Robin, but their room was like line out the door at TCEA. I mean, great sessions. And again, another really good conversation with those two educators.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I got to catch one of Amy's sessions live at TCEA. Again, just so great to connect with folks. But yeah, let's bring on our guest that we had and we aired live a couple weeks ago.
Sounds good. We'll play these. We'll be interacting on social and keeping the conversation going. Hope you guys enjoy the conversations.
We are so excited to be here live from TCEA. It is February. You might be hearing this airing a little bit later, but we figured while we're here in Dallas and are around so many amazing educators and school leaders really doing, changing the face of education, we take advantage of that time and have some opportunity to chat with some amazing people. So today we have with us Rochelle here. Rochelle, do you want to kind of just introduce yourself and tell our folks where you are coming from, what you do, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so thank you for having me, first of all. My name is Rochelle De Nepal, and I do a lot of things in education. So I'm a Spanish and STEAM educator from Pittsburgh, and I've been teaching for a long time. I teach students in grades 9 through 12 in Spanish. I have an 8th grade STEAM emerging technology course. So I love that because it takes me back to when I was a kid, long ago, with all the technology coming into the classroom. And so I teach full time. I do some writing on the side and do some consulting on the side, and just love learning, love being at conferences and getting to connect with people, and just really love what I do.
It's amazing. So the theme for kind of our series of shows in the spring has been all around future of education. Where are we going? What's happening? So just kind of throw out to you as a general conversation, where do you see things going? Like, what do you hope we learned in the last couple of years? What are you seeing this week? What are you hearing from your friends? What's maybe one or two things you can offer to our viewers of things that you hope education heads toward in the near future?
Yeah, that's a huge question, right? Everyone's the answer to that. Yeah, so a couple of things, like in the last 2 years, I'm used to now saying like the last 2 years, because I was like last year, like, no, it's been 2 years. I think the biggest thing people have learned is like learning can happen anywhere. And you have to be prepared with like not just the technology, you have to have like methods and things in place to support students, but also be willing to be flexible and take risks with that. Because when schools closed, everybody was like, how do we do this? And you just kind of fell into it. But I think that pushed a lot of people to take those chances. And then it was a good model for our students to see like, yeah, not everybody knows all the answers, or like let's experiment with new things. And so what I've seen here during this time at this conference has been like people are hungry for like the new ideas, like emerging technologies, STEM, looking at project-based learning, like pushing beyond like our school, like our classroom first, and then beyond our school and connecting students globally to build like all of these, essential, I don't say 21st century skills because we're well into the 21st century. But like social emotional learning, like how can you do that? Because for a lot of teachers, they think that they have to be an expert. Like I was like that. I thought I have to be an expert. I can't do this because I don't know all of the things about it. But like you don't. You just need to start somewhere and take the risk to model that for students and learn about those new things that are up and coming and find ways to cater to like building social emotional learning skills, which can be done in, like STEM, project-based learning, and like all the emerging technologies that we're hearing, with metaverse and all of the things that teachers are probably like, oh my goodness, what's next? But having these opportunities like conferences or connecting, through your network and even with students, just letting them explore, that's, I think, the biggest thing is like taking those chances so we can best prepare them for the future.
So it's a lot, like, I think that's what I'm hearing too, is teachers hear all these words and they're just, some of them have been buzzwords that have been around in education for 10 or 15 years. And then they're like, oh, now I know what that means. But then there's more coming at them, right? Like you mentioned, like the metaverse, and what does AI look like in the classroom, and how am I making sure that I'm teaching my kids the skills they need? I know they're called soft skills, but actually I think they should be hard skills, because it takes years and years and years to develop. But I know, I'm hearing teachers feeling like I'm so tired and there's so much more. Any advice for someone who is just really feeling overwhelmed? Where should they start?
Yeah, that's, and we're all feeling that, because we're doing so many things. And I was trying to think like, why are we all so tired? I think it's because when we weren't able to do some of these things like go to conferences or do, activities, we took on more and we were trying to learn more things. And so now we're doing all the things that we used to do and the new things. And so that overwhelm happens all the time. And the best advice I can give, not that I'm an expert, is like, look at your classroom or ask your students or think about what's taking up the most time in your day. And like, what is one area that you can focus on? And sometimes you can find one tool, one method that solves like a lot of those issues and challenges. And so the first thing is like, find something to connect your students with. Like for me years ago, they had questions and I wasn't available, like either after school hours or we were in a meeting. And so I found a messaging tool, and then we used, an LMS, and we just kind of built upon that and not doing everything at once. If you're looking to get involved in something like project-based learning, say that's something that you don't have to, again, be the expert, just give it a go and take it one step at a time. The last thing I would say is make sure that you connect, because for years I kept myself connected. Not connected. I was in my room like, oh, I'm having challenges, or I don't know where to find the answers. I didn't reach out to anybody, but we have all of these ways to connect with people from around the world. So just make sure that you have somebody that's there to support and that you can support as well.
We dig into that just a little bit more in terms of the energy that you get. The knowledge is great, right? There's no doubt that there are experts on Teams, OneNote, online learning, you name your topic and we can find an expert or many. But what about the energy, like the emotional almost support that you get and encouragement and cheering on you get from those groups? What does that do for you, and what can that provide for these teachers that Robin's talking about?
Yeah, it's amazing, because even like, there are some people at TCA that I have known and been friends with for like 4 years. And it's funny because they're like, have we met in person before? But you've been meeting in these spaces. And when you get together, especially if you can meet in person, or just having those connections and knowing that like you can reach out in any form, a quick text message or whatever you use, you can have a meeting or something, and you can ask a question and it can give you an answer like really quickly. It's awesome. Or when you say, oh my gosh, I'm having that same problem, like, what did you do? And the person tells you, well, I did this, and you're like, why didn't I ever think about that? And you just go back and forth. But you also have pushback too, where they might say, yeah, I don't really think that's gonna work. And you have that comfort level with them. But whenever you do get a chance to be together, whether it's in person or online, and you see each other and you know that you have that relationship with them, it not only benefits you, but it benefits your students, because you're sharing those ideas of what worked and what didn't work for you, and then you're impacting all of those that you're working with in the classroom.
So we would be amiss if we didn't actually talk about your students, but I'd love to kind of just, hear from you. How are your kids, and I say kids because that's what we say as teachers, but how are your students, how have their mindsets changed since, obviously teachers have had to, in some instances, start embracing technology in the classroom? Do you see their expectations changing? Do you think that their topics of interest are different now? Or I'd love to hear just what's going on in the classroom.
Yeah, it's like a mix of things. There are some students who say, well, I don't want to use technology, but they're always on their phones. They're like, well, wait a minute, like, you're using the technology now. And I think that a lot of the students really start to appreciate like how they could connect and interact with, not just their teachers, but each other, especially in a time when everybody was at home and trying to learn like that. It also, in my experience, my students are great because I bring in a lot of different technologies and methods, and sometimes I say to them, like, I don't really know how this is going to work. I've never used this before, or I just started and created something on my own. But the kids get really excited to try something new, especially when it gives them a lot of choices in what they're creating. And if they don't really want to use the tech, or if they want to go beyond it, like, there's something there for all of them. And in the past 2 years, it can be like going back to the overwhelming. I think a lot of teachers were like pulling in all these different tools because there were so many out there to choose from. And so then that can be overwhelming, of course, to the teachers, but also the students and their families. But I think in this process, students gain this new appreciation for like how to leverage technology and use them, for beneficial purposes, like learning and connecting and feeling like you're part of a classroom community. And so for my students, like just thinking back when using teams in my school, being able to go into breakout rooms and being able to do like things like station rotations, which in my classroom we would do, and you can move around, which is great. But when you're not in the classroom and you're like, I don't feel like I'm part of that classroom community, to be able to use the breakout rooms and to go and do these activities, to hear each other, maybe see each other if their cameras were on, or maybe in a ceiling fan, like you don't know, because like that was the case, right? Like, who are you? Because when they came into the classroom, like some of them I'd never seen in person. I just saw like their background or like top of the head, like, who are you again? But I think it gave them a new appreciation for like the power of technology, and also for some who thought, well, I'm only going to use this in school, realizing that like this is what other people are using, like people are working remotely, so it helped them to build those skills that are essential for like not just the future, but for now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Love the learning.
Yes,
we definitely want
time.
Learning for all. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. But before we go, we want to ask you just a couple fun questions too. Here down for a couple fun questions. All right, so I'll give you maybe an easy one.
Okay.
If you could be anywhere in the world right now, where would you want to be?
That's a bad question. No, not only because like anywhere in the world, people think like going abroad, like you probably want to go to Spain or Europe or all these places. There are a lot of places I would want to go. But anybody who knows me knows that my favorite place to go in the whole world is Nashville. So I just always want to go to Nashville because there's something about
that's the one
the
that's
vibe, and there's something there for everyone. I've had a lot of like, we've gone there for writing and just retreats and like those types of things. I've been there for a lot of conferences, and it's just a happy, it's a happy place. So I would go to Nashville, no surprise.
Nice.
Love it.
Yeah.
Can we move TCEA and all?
I know.
Because I would go to every single one.
Like, trust me, I look and see, I'm like Nashville conferences, education, ed tech, like every term, and there are a couple that are coming up in the spring. Yeah, it's next week. Yeah, no surprise that I'll be in town next week.
Love it. Just happen to be passing through.
Yeah.
Love it. One more, and we'll get you out of here on this one. What is the last Netflix movie you watched or show that you had a chance to binge watch, if you had time to weave that into your already busy schedule?
Well, I'm glad you didn't ask me this 2 years ago, because 2 years ago I had never watched Netflix. And then it took like the pandemic, and I was like, so I got caught up with Blacklist. But then there was the last show that I watched and finished was Money Heist, which actually is filmed in Spain, and it has Spanish and so it has voiceovers, but it was fantastic. I was so hooked into it, but there was one that has a really long title, like The Woman in the Window Across the Street or something like that. I heard about it on the way to work, listening to Sirius Radio, like the Nashville broadcast.
Yeah, Kristen Bell, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Kristen Bell, and I couldn't remember her name when I watched it. I was like, and I couldn't stop watching. It was like 2 in the morning. Just one more episode. Like, I gotta get up at 5, and I watched it. So it was great. Like, I love having that access to that. But yeah, up till 2 years ago, I was like, I don't know anything about Netflix, and so I picked a show and I just like go through about. In The Office, I know, watch The Office, and then that was the start. So
There we go.
Yeah,
Look at all the world you've discovered in the last 2 years, right?
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and hope all of you who are listening in got to learn something new from Rochelle today. So thanks.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Hi friends, we're joining you here live from TCEA in Dallas, Texas, and we have some amazing guests to join us today. Our friends with Fried Tech, Amy Storer and Stephen Stone. I'm so excited to learn from them. I know you will be too. And so I'll turn it over to them, let them introduce themselves, tell you who they are and why they are here.
Hi, my name is Amy Storer, and I am the lead learning guide at Fried Tech. And I'm here because I just love Microsoft. Who doesn't?
Hey, I'm Stephen Stone, Director of Microsoft Partnership and Training with Fried Tech. I'm just glad to be here, and I do love everything about Microsoft.
You're also Texans, friends. So why don't you tell them a little bit about where you live and what you did prior to joining Fried Tech?
Sure. I live in Plantersville, Texas, which is not too far. It's like an hour and a half north of Houston. I live out there. Prior to joining Fried Tech and joining this team, I was a pre-K through 5th grade instructional coach in Montgomery, Texas, as well as the lead tech integration mentor for my district. And I have classroom experience mostly in 3rd and 4th grade math and science.
All right, well, before joining Fried Tech, I was the Instructional Technology Training Coordinator for Cyclotrap ISD in Houston, Texas. Well, I live in Katy, Texas, but our district is the 3rd largest district in Texas. So it had about 115,000 students and about 8,000 employees that we would train on technology. What else do you want to know? Oh, well, I am a certified educator and administrator, and I do have classroom experience, and I just love how technology just brings joy to the classroom in everyone's life.
So our theme for this spring and this kind of series of shows is all around the future of education. And now that we're back at conferences, learning from each other, and Amy in particular, I love your title of Learning Guide. I think that's a fantastic title. So what are you guys seeing? What is Fried Tech doing, and what are educators doing, or can we do to guide folks to this new way of rethinking and reimagining education?
Yeah, I think a lot of what's come about recently is it's so student-centered. It's so focused on student needs. And just this morning, I was sharing about Microsoft Edge, and there was a new feature that popped up, and I was like, this is a fantastic feature that it's about the students. It's about all learners. And I just love the way that we are all evolving to become more student-centered, to cater to their needs. There are so many things that are around right now that I wish would have been around when I was in the classroom as a student. But I'm so excited to work alongside Microsoft, for example, to highlight these tools that it just serves and services so many.
What do I see it going? Amy is right. It's more so student-centered, but placing the student in charge of their own learning. And I think the pandemic had something to do with that because, we've been trying to do this, 10 years? Trying to, get people on board to have the technology to drive it. And I'm so grateful that in the midst of the pandemic, Microsoft stepped forward. There were some things that we've been saying, hey, what if we did this? What if we did that? And it was like the clouds just opened up, the sky just opened, where everything is now there, and things are popping up, like you said, just a new feature just popped in, like it just changes overnight, and it's just so wonderful. But where do I see it going? Yeah, more student-centered, one-on-one learning. Students are just learning on their own. I mean, for me, the math app is just blowing me away, right? So
thinking about, student-centered learning, maybe we say personalized learning, et cetera. I think, it's more about designing teaching and learning for all students. And I think
back in the day when I was still teaching, you know, we talked a lot about differentiated instruction, but we didn't really know how to make that happen. We knew it was important, but I think we have the tools available that we can, you know, start to provide, you know, universal design for learning for all students, thinking about accessibility and inclusion first. So it's not just designing it for the 2 or 3 that may need extra accommodations in the class, but it's about empowering all the students to be able to leverage those things. But when, you know, there's a lot coming at teachers right now, right? You know, it always has, I think, but on top of that, they're struggling with, you know, some students are in person, some may be out temporarily for, you know, sickness, or maybe their parents are out, et cetera. And so having to teach in person, maybe to have remote lessons going. There's millions of technology tools out there to choose from. There's a lot of noise, et cetera. What's your advice, or what do you usually tell teachers? You guys work with them all the time. How do you, what advice do you give teachers to not feel overwhelmed and to be able to focus for the greatest student impact?
Yeah, I was that teacher that thought I had to do all the things. You know, all the cool apps and the websites and tips and tricks. That was what I needed to do to serve my students, right? But it really comes down to the focus being the students. The students, the learning standard, what's the goal? And if you can find that one tool that addresses everything that you need to do to address that goal, stick with it, and then maybe pick up a new tool or technique later. But I get the feeling of like FOMO, like you want to try them all. And you don't have to try them all to reach our students. You just find what works for your kids and then run with it. Like I said, maybe the next school year, pick up a new tip and trick and then run with that.
Start slow. Start slow and don't try to be like anyone else as a teacher. Be you. And knowing that your students are there and then you can also learn from them. But start slow. I was told, you know, you can do too much too fast, too soon, and then it turns out to be nothing. And so one thing I love about teams is teams you can start slow and grow into it. With the classroom, you know, starting with the chatting feature and posting announcements, start your discussions and your interactions going, and then maybe jump into the class notebook, then jump into ears tabs. So just start slow, and maybe as a teacher, just build your own implementation plan, or not, you know, just drive on yourself, but talk to other educators who have done this. But to keep the students in, I like what Robin said, as far as you have students in person and students who are working virtually. And that's why teams just popped to my mind. How can you get them all in one place? You know, with the video concept and the chatting and all that, so that no student can feel like I'm in this alone.
You mentioned something, several things, but in particular, one thing very interesting, Stephen, is the idea of, you said we've been trying this for 10 years. Some of us have been at the forefront of some of this work for quite a long time now, and there's still maybe teachers out there, in fact, even maybe some watching this interview right now, that may be a silo. They may be one person, the only voice in their community or at their school feeling that. And you also mentioned the idea of reaching out to others. Talk about the power of a PLN, whether it be through social media or coming to a conference like this. What are the benefits of not feeling like you're alone? How does that help you as an educator, not just in your own classroom, but help that grow in your school and your district and across your entire community?
Well, when you have a heart for learning and a heart for students, and then a heart to know that, hey, if we try this, this is going to work. Let not be so consumed that you are the Lone Ranger. And you talked about a PLN, and I believe that's the reason why I've gotten to where I have gotten. You know, being in contact with Robin, you know, I would give her a hard time all the time. But being in contact with her, and when she came to our district, I was like, that's somebody who I need to know. That's someone who is going places, who is going somewhere, and she just knew it all. And I was like, I want the knowledge. And then I went to Amy's district. Amy stood out, and I was like, okay, well, then prior research was like, okay, let's come together. Don't just consider just in your own community, in your own neighborhood, reach out to those social media platforms and then start building your own learning tribe. And then just spread the love of knowledge that you gain. And then one day they'll jump on board. And that day has already come and gone because of the pandemic. And I know some teachers have wished they jumped on board. Now, since we're here in the midst of it, it's never too late.
Yeah, and Twitter. I mean, I don't know where I would be right now without Twitter. And I remember when it was introduced to me, I was at a math conference in Houston, and I was like, I do not need one more social media app. But literally, since the day that I put it on my phone, and then I started using it with my students in my classroom, and then as a teacher, the things that I've learned from others is just something you can't measure. And the people that I've met, like just being here yesterday, I was walking the halls, and I saw someone, and I was like, trying to see if this is your Twitter profile. Because like I know you from afar, but is it you? It's just the people that I've met that have encouraged me, that have led me to where I am today, to work alongside Stephen. I just don't think a lot of what's happened to me as an educator, the things that I've learned would have happened without my PLA.
Without reaching out.
Yeah, agree with that. I resisted it first too, and this morning I hosted a session about Twitter and the power of it. It's like it really has, it's game changing in our community with MIE experts, but also any tool, any app, you can find a hashtag, mention the company. I mean, just how it's all brought us together is really amazing.
You don't have to memorize all the facts. You
Yeah.
just search for your
What a
amazing
concept.
community, right? It's amazing.
And now we're talking about PLN and don't have to memorize anything, whatever. But here we go back again, take it back to students. Let us not refrain or keep our students from these things because there is a community and the information is all out there. And we have to know that we're not the sole owners of all of the information. The information is there for everyone to learn. We just need to point them into the right direction to get the right information.
I used to say my students schooled me on school. Like they taught me how to be a better teacher. I think they taught me things that college didn't prepare me for, so.
That's great. I love that quote.
We learn by doing, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, we're so excited to have you guys here, and I mean, you are part of our professional learning network and family, and so grateful to learn from you. I know our viewers out there are also grateful to learn information about you, and definitely you should follow these two on social media and check out Fried Tech. They're a great partner for Microsoft Education, and we're just really glad to have you. But before we let you go, are you down for a couple of, fun questions?
Sure.
Well, I know you're Microsoft fans because you both mentioned it. So I'll start with something really easy. What is your favorite Microsoft application?
Yours. Mine's Immersive Reader. It's my favorite.
Oh, nice.
Hey, we'll see you already know. What?
Starts with an M. Starts with an M?
Yeah, math. Math solver, because I'm a math teacher at heart. And every time my daughter comes home, she said, Dad, I don't know this problem. She's in 7th grade. I said, what did I tell you? Go use the math solver app, go get online. And then she learned, and then they give her steps and videos. So I'm sold.
Yeah, it's great.
I'm sold.
And Immersive Reader.
Yeah,
Also love that you guys mentioned two tools that, many people think of Microsoft, they think of Office, their Word, PowerPoint,
OneNote, Teams,
right?
Sure.
And Excel, and you guys probably exposed a bunch of other people to, they're like, what is this Immersive Reader? What is this math solver?
Especially math. Not people know still about the amazing power of that application. It's unbelievable.
All right, over to you, Scott.
So we'll get you out of here on this one. If you could be anywhere else in the world right now, together or apart, you can decide that later on. But if you could travel anywhere in the world right now, where would you go?
Oh, I would love to go back to Hawaii. Kauai is where I'd love to go back to.
Okay.
Good memories there, yeah.
Awesome.
You can come if you want.
Well, we were just talking about this. If I can go to Disney World and stay for 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
It's a lot of Disney. I love it. I'm in.
Go back and forth 2 weeks, just take it all in, no rush, more about life, just let it be what it's going to be.
Sounds great.
Nice. Disney and Hawaii. Pack me in your bag.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys again for all you do to change teaching and learning and support teachers. We're grateful to have you in our community. And with that, we'll talk to you later, friends.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.